Man is a wolf to man. A long, long time ago, in the land called Africa, a flock of little black sheep were grazing in a field. The little black sheep were content and happy. They had everything their hearts could ever desire. They were quite certain that they were truly in heaven. Far, far away, in the icy northern wastelands, in the lands so distant that even the good old sun never bothered to pay them a proper visit. Except for a tiny trickle of light that peered through the hazy skies, a pack of wolves awoke from their wintry lairs. They were hungry and angry. They quarrelled amongst themselves for scraps of bones from hares and rabbits that had perished in the bitter cold of winter past. Their scraggy coats, white as snow, hung loosely on their long, spindly bones. They were a desperate and sorry sight to behold. The leader of the pack, a big white wolf named Jack Reaper, mused thoughtfully. He watched with a heavy heart his pack quarrel bitterly over miserly scraps of food.
We cannot continue living like beggars in this cold, barren wasteland, but what to do?
A lone stork flying yonder saw the misery below and wondered what the trouble was all about. He decided to fly down and find out for himself.
I'm curious, you all,
said the old bird, tucking his wings close to his body and craning his long neck to the height of the leader of the pack.
Why are you all squabbling over scraps of fur and bones? And why are you all just skin and bones?
He laughed.
Oh, and teeth, very large teeth,
laughed the stork. The hungry wolves eyed the big fat stork, hungrily licking their chops. A meal like that could keep them going for a week or two. Jack Reaper, the leader of the pack, was clever and cunning. He knew that if he could just keep the big fat stork talking, the other wolves could sneak behind him and pounce. Dinner would surely be served, and what a delicious feast that old bird would make. Cough.
Say, big fella, what's your name and where have you come from?
He asked in as friendly a voice as he could muster. Rumble. His stomach went.
My name is Otis Stockfish. I've just flown in from Africa. Oh, I have to tell you about Africa. The land is like paradise, full of fat little black sheep grazing in the fields all day long. They eat and sleep and wake up and eat some more. Lots and lots of fat little black sheep as far as the eye can see, in any direction you care to look. If you go there, I'm sure they will be quite happy to let you have some of their grass. I notice the grass doesn't grow very well here. In Africa, the grass is as tall as a man and so juicy. It's called savanna grass.
Another wolf was about to pounce on the stork, but Jack Reaper raised his paw and the wolf stopped dead in his tracks.
Tell me more about this land they call Africa. Oh, how rude of me. Let me introduce myself. The name's Jack Reaper, and you don't need to worry about them. They will not as much as harm a feather on your wings,
Jack Reaper said calmly. Otis, the curious stork, relaxed a little. He was intrigued by the big wolf with a charming smile. So, he thought,
and friendly zebras grazing in the shadow of the Kilimanjaro. All you have to do to get there is fly south and keep heading south. The land is so big that you can't miss it. Yes, Africa is beautiful, my old snow-white friend. The land is big and warm all year round. There are lots of little black sheep from as far north and as far south, as far east and as far west as you can go,
explained Otis the stork jovially.
Fly south, really?
Jack Reaper smiled menacingly.
Any last words?
Excuse me?
Otis exclaimed, suddenly alarmed by the menacing tone in the wolf's voice. Jack Reaper, the leader of the pack, gave a little nod, and Otis Stockfish, the African stork, was no more. Their bellies full, the wolves were happy and content. They laid down to sleep, but one among them was restless. The leader of the pack, Jack Reaper. He knew that bellies don't stay full for very long. He dreamed of Africa, of lots and lots of little black sheep. Fat little black sheep as far as the eye could see. Suddenly he growled and howled at the top of his voice.
Ahoo, ahoo! Everyone gather around me. I have glad tidings for you all. Gather around.
He sang with such verve, all the wolves gathered around their leader.
Friends! Meat grinders, bone crushers, ice-cold killers. You all heard the blackbird. There is a land on the other side of the world called Africa. It has more meat than we can eat in a lifetime. An all-you-can-eat buffet to last 1,000 years. We shall never go hungry again. Our cubs and our cubs' cubs and their cubs and so on shall never know what hunger is ever again. We're going to Africa. We shall eat day and night. We shall eat until the meat comes out of our noses. Ha, ha, ha.
The big bad wolf laughed out loud.
We shall grow fat and indolent. We shall be gods amongst the animals, kings of the jungle. Ahoo, ahoo.
Never was such merriment ever seen before in the cold lands of snow and ice than the day the wolves discovered Africa. Jack Reaper's joy was immeasurable. He sang and danced like a young wolf cub.
We're off to Africa, where the moonlights gleam, chasing little black sheep in the wild moonbeam, through the grassy meadows under the starry night, in this land of mischief, where the mischief takes flight. O Africa, the land of our delight, where the hunting's easy and the moon is shining bright. Through the plains, through the valleys, our paws are on the prowl. We're off to Africa, where the laughter of hyenas howl. Little black sheep with wool so soft in this funny chase where our hunger's loft. Through the acacia trees in the pale moon's light, in this merry escapade under the African night, lions and cheetahs may stick to their lairs, but us wolves will dine like kings on the savannah's fabled fairs. Little black sheep dancing through the night, in this comedy of hunger where our appetite's in full flight. O Africa, the land of our delight, where the hunting's easy and the moon is shining bright. Through the plains, through the valleys, our paws are on the prowl. We're off to Africa, where the laughter of hyenas howl. So off we go in this jig so grand, chasing little black sheep across the moonlit land. Through the laughter and the feasting, our adventures on the roll, in the heart of Africa, where the wolves have found their soul.
Jack Reaper sang and danced with such glee and verve, he wanted to change the words of the jig a little.
I hate to be a spoil sport, Mr. Jack Reaper, sir, but Africa is so far away. And in case you haven't noticed, we don't have any wings. We can't fly like that old black bird, sir.
Don't worry your little head, Mr. Sparrow, I've got a plan. Before the last leaf of autumn falls, we shall be fine dining on fat little black sheep on the African savannah.
Jack Reaper, the leader of the pack, hummed to himself with such glee and verve.
Na 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 na, chasing little black sheep across the moonlit land. An empire of wolves we shall rule till the cows come home.
But his mind was already working on how to get all the way to Africa from the icy badlands without wings. His mind was racing like a supercomputer. A flock of Siberian geese landed on the lake with a noisy splash, their white wings glinting in the spring sunlight. In a flash of inspiration, Jack Reaper had the answer. He was going to build a ship. The wind would push it all the way to Africa. The leader of the pack was smart, mean, and cunning. His sharp mind bordered on pure genius.
I don't want to go to Africa, Mama.
A little wolf cub protested to its mother, Queen Isabella of Tartarus, the queen of the wolves.
The black sheep might be mean to me.
The little cub complained. Jack Reaper laughed.
No, my boy, they shall worship like a god. I have it all figured out. Ha ha ha.
His laughter echoed down the side of the mountain far and wide. But the little black sheep did not hear it in Africa. It was simply far too far. The stork could not warn them either, for he was already in the bellies of the ravenous beasts. Meanwhile, in Africa, the land of plenty, the little black sheep grazed on the hills beside Kilimanjaro. They skipped and played on the plains of the Masai Mara, on the valleys and vales of the Zambezi, and on the veldts of the Kongo. Little did they know that the winds of the ethereal were conspiring to turn their world upside down. The grass was plentiful. The little black sheep wanted for nothing. But the gates of hell were about to be opened. Before the last leaf of the icy cold autumn season had dropped to the ground, the wolves had constructed a magnificent ship. They named it the Inferno.
Those little black sheep will never know what hit them,
smiled Jack Reaper. Jack Reaper, the leader of the pack, stood at the helm of the ship and gave a resounding speech to his renegade band of wolves.
I'm Jack Reaper. From now on, you'll all address me as captain. We shall eat, live, sleep, and die on this ship until we reach Africa,
he announced, thumping his massive paws on the deck of the ship.
There is a vast distance between us and our destination. We set sail. Today, I can only promise you blood, sweat, and tears between here and Africa on this, our maiden voyage. But rest assured, when we get there, we shall feast and be merry for 1,000 years. I promise you riches beyond your wildest dreams. The future will remember us dearly as the founding fathers that gave them Africa and all its bounty. So let's all raise our glasses to Africa.
Captain Jack Reaper punched the air and howled victoriously.
Hi, Captain.
The canine pack chanted with much zeal and admiration for their leader, Captain Jack Reaper. They raised the anchor and set sail on the long voyage to Africa. After many months of sailing and much suffering, hunger, starvation, disease, countless mutinies, and many deaths, the wolves finally arrived on the shores of the Congo in Africa.
Land ahoy, Captain!
Shouted the bedraggled Mr. Cecil John Sparrow.
Remember, black sheep have never seen white sheep before. When they see us wearing these white sheep masks, they will think that we're gods and will worship us.
Captain Jack Reaper explained for the umpteenth time. The pack of wolves made land on the Congo shore. Their excitement knew no bounds.
Africa, Africa, Africa at last, they chanted.
Right, remember what we practiced? When we get on land, everyone, don your white sheep's cloaks,
Ordered Captain Jack Reaper. They donned the white sheep's cloaks and masks. This made them look just like sheep. They began to trot up the hills to the wide savanna fields of the Congo. The air was thick with the scent of little black sheep. The ravenous wolves' stomachs started to rumble. In the distance, they could see the black dots of little black sheep spread across the savanna as far as the eye could see. Just as the old stork had described, hungry and enticed by the scent of meat, the pack of wolves sprinted towards the flock of sheep. Soon they were only a few yards away from their prey, grazing, blissfully oblivious to the impending doom.
Rah, rah, rah!
They growled fiercely. When they got really close, the wolves stopped. They started to growl, ready to pounce and devour the little black sheep. The little black sheep took one look at the strange-looking sheep and started laughing, but they decided to pretend to be really scared. They were very amused with the big white sheep that growled like lions and had teeth like hyenas' teeth. Baba and Dugu, the leader of the flock of the little black sheep, finally stopped laughing and said,
Welcome, brothers. You look like aliens. Are you lost or something? Where have you come from? Or maybe you're the dead evil spirits come back to haunt us.
The black sheep laughed some more. They were a happy bunch who never tired of singing, eating, dancing, and living the good life. For they never went hungry. Food and anything they ever needed was only an arm's length away.
Oh, most scary spirits, please don't hurt us.
They laughed. But little did they know that these creatures were not sheep at all. They were in fact fierce, dangerous wolves dressed as sheep. How cunning.
Rah, rah, rah!
Growled the wolves. The little black sheep pretended to tremble with fear. Then they burst out laughing. They had never had so much fun in their whole lives.
Please don't eat us.
They cried and rolled on the grass laughing. Captain Jack Reaper, the leader of the wolf pack, growled at the wolves.
Fools, don't you remember what I said? It's not rah, rah, it's ba, ba, ba.
Oh, my bad, ba, ba.
Exclaimed Mr. Cecil John Sparrow, the first mate.
Ba, ba, ba!
The wolves laughed.
This is ridiculous. Let's eat them already.
Ba, ba, little black sheep, we come in peace. We're your gods. We have come to save you from the lions, the hyenas, and...
Captain Jack Reaper explained to the little black sheep, scratching his head trying to remember all the names of the big African predators he had heard of.
And giraffes.
Added Mr. Cecil John Sparrow, smiling to himself.
Giraffes!
The black sheep shook their heads in disbelief and laughed till their sides hurt.
Who are these clowns? You mean cheetahs?
The black sheep bleated with bemused incredulity.
Ah, yes, Cheetos.
Nodded the captain, trying to sound plausible, whilst his stomach rumbled at the sight of all that juicy meat.
We have come from the lands of the gods, over the seas where the grass is always green and is as sweet as honey,
said Captain Jack Reaper.
This is all too easy.
Captain Jack Reaper laughed to himself. He could already imagine tucking into some tender fresh mutton.
Come with us, we will show you the finest lamb you've ever tasted. I mean the finest, tenderest grass you've ever eaten. We only need a dozen of you. We can't eat all of you at once.
Captain Jack Reaper laughed ominously.
Say what?
The sheep bleated altogether.
Sorry, I mean we can't sit all of you at the table at the same time. There are not enough seats. We can call it a banquet in the Congo, if you like. If you eat this grass, you will become gods just like us.
Captain Jack Reaper corrected himself quickly.
We're gods, and gods don't eat, right, boys?
Captain Jack Reaper added, nodding his head. The other wolves nodded in unison, saliva drooling from their gaping jaws. They understood Captain Jack Reaper's ploy. It was so clever, it was genius. A dozen fat little black sheep licked their chops as they imagined the juicy green grass fit for the white sheep gods. They followed the wolves in sheep's clothing to the edge of the forest. Smoking baby. No sooner were they behind the tree line, out of sight of the other little black sheep, did the wolves remove their disguises and pounce on the unsuspecting little black sheep. Poor little black sheep. They didn't even get the chance to say, "So, where's all this juicy green grass you promised us?" There was no feast at all. There was a banquet, all right, but not for them. They were the feast. The wolves cast off their white sheep's cloaks and masks and pounced on the little black sheep. They ripped their flesh and crunched their bones. The wolves were really famished. They devoured everything, the flesh, skin, and bones of the little black sheep until there was nothing left. That night the wolves held a big banquet. They invited a dozen more little black sheep and devoured them all too. They drank wine, beer, and whiskey all night long. They sang their favorite jig well into the night. They were so drunk and exhausted that they fell asleep where they stood. Their stomachs fuller than they had ever experienced in their whole lives. Fuller than the stomachs of any wolves that ever lived before them. Even in their sleep, the wolves sang their favorite jig as they dreamed of the good times never ever ending.
Oh, Africa, the land of our delight, where the hunting's easy and the moon is shining bright, chasing little black sheep in the wild moonbeam. Yum, nam, nam, full tum, tum, tum. Oh, Africa.
They snored and howled in their sleep. Long, joyful howls. Back in the field, the little black sheep huddled and scratched their heads. They wondered why their friends had not returned all night, but more than anything, they dreamed of tasting the sweet grass from the white sheep gods. When morning came, first mate, Mr. Cecil John Sparrow, proposed to bestow the highest wolf's honor to Captain Jack Reaper.
You, Captain Jack Reaper, shall be called Jack the Ripper, King of the Wolves, King of Kings, Ripper of 1,000 little black sheep, Emperor of the Savannah, King of the Jungle.
Day after day and night after night, all the wolves had to say was,
Little sheep, come and enjoy the banquet in the Kongo.
and a dozen little black sheep would go running to the edge of the forest, expecting delicious green grass, never to be seen again. After a while, the little black sheep started to ask after their friends. The wolves replied,
Your friends are feasting on the sweet, soft green grass of the gods. They never want to go back to eating that horrible, dry savanna grass again. You can come and see for yourselves if you want.
When the little black sheep went to the edge of the forest, their fate was sealed. They ended up in the tummies of the big bad white wolves. The evil ploy worked every time. When one field was emptied of all the sheep, the wolves simply moved on to the next field. There was an endless supply of little black sheep.
This is so easy, it's making me dizzy. These little black sheep are too stupid. We'll forget how to hunt soon. Who ever heard of prey willingly presenting itself to the hunter? It is in our nature to hunt. We're evil. We kill things. Look at us. We're growing fat.
The wolves complained.
So you want to hunt, do you? Then go and hunt.
Growled Captain Jack the Ripper.
When you're done hunting and killing things, we have work to do. We're going back home. We shall gather as many of the little black sheep as will fit in the hull and take them back home with us. Then we shall build more ships and come back for them all. We shall farm them like beaver farm fish, and yes, we shall forget how to hunt because we shall never need to hunt again. Instead, we shall build cities and pave them with gold.
When they heard this, the wolves were overjoyed. The wolves went out to hunt, but the little black sheep were easy prey. So the wolves invented all sorts of ways to amuse themselves with them. They invented games like chase the sheep until it drops dead, hang the sheep, beat the sheep, ride the sheep, gut the sheep, skin the sheep alive, lynch the sheep, drop the sheep from a cliff, hang the sheep by its tail. Ba ba, black sheep, how long can you hold your black head underwater before you drown? Ba ba, black sheep, what happens if I squeeze your neck real tight and count to 100? And of course, their all-time favorite, roast the sheep and eat the sheep. The little black sheep endured immense suffering. They were hunted, chased, and slaughtered for the sheer pleasure of the wolves. Their world collapsed in on them. Gone were the happy days of days gone by. True to his word, Captain Jack the Ripper returned back to the lands of ice and snow. He took back a boatload of little black sheep. The wolves in the land of ice and snow were very pleased to have so much meat. They had never had it so good in their entire lives. The wolves built more ships and sailed back to Africa, filled them with millions of little black sheep and sailed back home. Wherever they went, they took their trusted supply of fresh meat with them. When they ran out of meat, they simply sailed back to Africa and caught more sheep and shipped them back to the lands of ice and snow. The wolves never went hungry again, not even for a day. They traveled far and wide and conquered more land. Soon they had almost conquered the entire world. In time, the little black sheep learned to worship the white wolves in sheep's clothing. Some of them even learned to wear white cloaks and eat meat like the wolves, all the while also pretending to be good black sheep. Great confusion rose amongst the little black sheep. They no longer knew which black sheep was a real sheep or a wolf sheep. They began to mistrust one another and quarrel amongst themselves. They quarreled over territory. They fought over the color of the grass. They quarreled over the ownership of rivers and lakes. Generations passed and centuries went by. The wolves continued to enjoy endless banquets and feasts of fresh mutton from Africa. They sang about the legend of Jack the Ripper. They called him King of the Wolves, Ripper of the Little Black Sheep, the founding father of the lands of ice and snow. The wolves were clever and cunning. They created an army of little black sheep that hid in plain sight, capturing little black sheep, packing them onto ships and sending them to be devoured by the wolves. The wolves called their black sheep army our little bloodhounds. The real black sheep called them the undead zombies or the walking dead dogs. For they had no will of their own. The bloodhound, the most dangerous animal in Africa, tirelessly serving his wolf masters. But in Africa, after centuries of falling prey to the wolves, some little black sheep began to see that something was very wrong. They traveled to the deepest, darkest heart of Africa, the Ngorongoro and Virunga Mountains. There, they consulted the great oracles, called the spirits of the mountains. The oracles gave them special portions called muti to drink. They sang and danced all night and descended into a deep trance. At first light, when they came round too, the little black sheep were surprised to discover that they were no longer little black sheep. They had been transformed into fierce and mighty black panthers. They roared like thunder and the mountains trembled with fear. The spirits of the mountains imparted one crucial message to the black panthers before sending them on their way.
As you once were, you are once more. Go, sons and daughters of Africa, and claim back your honor. Never forget who you really are again, mighty Black Panthers.
The mighty Black Panther's roar echoed like an exploding volcano. It shook the stars loose from the heavens. It was heard across the whole continent of Africa and beyond. The Black Panthers rallied together and fought the wolves. They drove the wolves out of Africa. The mighty Black Panthers vowed never to endure enslavement ever again.